Two nations, a shared history. Once they were allies, their fates intertwined by bonds of kinship and trade. Their people moved freely across borders, sharing culture, knowledge, and prosperity. But time has a way of changing even the strongest of alliances. Now divided by suspicion, fear, for generations peace reigned. Yet beneath the surface old wounds festered and mistrust grew. Leaders on both sides began to question the intentions of their neighbors, and the seeds of discord were sown. But whispers of war, they traveled on the wind. Rumors spread like wildfire, igniting the hearts and minds of the people. Stories of betrayal and treachery filled the air, and the once peaceful lands were now on the brink of chaos. In the north, King Alaric, a ruler driven by ambition. His eyes were set on expanding his kingdom, and he saw the neighboring land as ripe for conquest. His advisors, eager to please, fanned the flames of his desire, urging him to take what he believed was rightfully his. Across the border, Queen Lyra, known for her wisdom, now facing an impossible choice. She had always been a ruler of peace, valuing diplomacy over conflict. But with the threat of invasion looming, she had to decide whether to stand her ground or seek a compromise. Both sides amassing armies, tens of thousands ready to fight, to kill, to die. The drums of war beat louder with each passing day, and the air was thick with tension. Families were torn apart as fathers, sons, and brothers marched off to battle, leaving behind loved ones who could only pray for their safe return. Among them, young men and women, barely more than children. They had grown up hearing tales of heroism and valor, but now they faced the harsh reality of war. Their training was rushed, their minds filled with fear and uncertainty, their faces etched with uncertainty, fear masked by bravado. They tried to appear strong for their comrades, but the weight of what lay ahead was almost too much to bear. In the quiet moments before battle, they clung to memories of home, drawing strength from the love and support of those they had left behind. And in their eyes, a question: what fate awaits us? They wondered if they would live to see another day, if they would return to their families, or if they would become just another name on a list of the fallen. The uncertainty of their future weighed heavily on their hearts, but they knew they had to press on, for the sake of their nations, and for the hope of a better tomorrow. The king's ambition, it knew no bounds. King Alaric, a ruler of immense vision and unyielding determination, was driven by a desire that transcended the ordinary. His dreams were vast, his aspirations limitless. He envisioned a kingdom that stretched beyond the horizon, a realm where his name would be etched in the annals of history as the greatest monarch to have ever lived. He craved power, dominion over all he surveyed. Every hill, every valley, every river that flowed through his lands was a testament to his growing might. The people, the towns, the cities, they were all pieces on his grand chessboard, each move calculated to bring him closer to ultimate supremacy. His gaze was always forward, always seeking the next conquest, the next territory to bring under his rule. His claim, an ancient pact, long forgotten, buried in the annals of time. This pact, a relic of a bygone era, was his justification for his relentless expansion. It was a document that spoke of old alliances and promises made in the shadows of history. To King Alaric, it was more than just parchment. It was a mandate, a divine right to extend his dominion. Queen Lyra, she saw through the charade. With a heart as wise as it was compassionate, she understood the true cost of her husband's ambitions. She saw the suffering of the people, the strain on the kingdom's resources, and the looming threat of war. Her eyes, often filled with concern, reflected the turmoil that brewed within the palace walls. This was a power grab, cloaked in the guise of history. The court was a hive of whispers and secret meetings, each faction vying for influence. Queen Lyra, with her keen insight, recognized the dangerous game being played. She confronted King Alaric, her voice steady but filled with urgency, trying to pierce through the veil of ambition that clouded his judgment. She pleaded for diplomacy, a return to reason. In the grand halls of the palace, her voice echoed as she spoke of peace, of the need to find common ground. She appealed to the council, to the advisors, to anyone who would listen. Her words were a call to sanity, a desperate attempt to steer the kingdom away from the brink of destruction. But her words fell on deaf ears. The king, consumed by his vision of glory, dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand. The court, swayed by the promise of power and riches, turned a blind eye to her warnings. It was as if a spell had been cast, one that blinded them to the impending disaster. King Alaric, his heart was set on war. The preparations began in earnest. Armies were assembled, strategies devised, and the kingdom's resources were funneled into the war effort. The king, clad in his resplendent armor, stood at the center of it all, a figure of unshakable resolve. His advisors, generals, and soldiers all rallied around him, ready to follow him into the fray. And so, the die was cast. The kingdom, once a beacon of peace and prosperity, was now a land bracing for conflict. Soldiers marched, their armor gleaming in the sunlight, their faces set in grim determination. Camps were set up, supplies gathered, and the air was thick with the tension of impending battle. The border, once a symbol of unity, now a line in the sand. It was a stark reminder of the divide that had grown between the kingdom and its neighbors. What was once a place of trade and camaraderie had become a battleground, a place where the fate of nations would be decided. The line in the sand was not just a physical boundary, it was a symbol of the choices made, the ambitions pursued, and the peace that was sacrificed. The first rays of dawn illuminated a horrifying scene. The king's forces, they struck with the fury of a storm. Their objective, the fortress of Ebonrock, key to the queen's defenses. The defenders, outnumbered but not outmatched, they fought with the courage of lions. Arrows rained down from the sky, each one a messenger of death. The ground, it trembled beneath the weight of charging horses. And the air, thick with the stench of blood and fear. The battle raged for hours, neither side giving an inch. Among the queen's defenders, a young captain, Liam. Known for his bravery, his loyalty, he rallied his men holding the line against impossible odds. Beside him, his childhood friend Anya, a skilled archer, her arrows found their mark with deadly accuracy. They fought side by side, their bond forged in the fires of war. But war, it is a cruel mistress, a stray arrow, an enemy sword. Fate, it can be so unforgiving. A hero's burden, the weight of responsibility, the pain of loss, and the relentless drive to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is the story of Liam, a soldier whose courage and determination would be tested in the crucible of war. Liam watched in horror as Anya fell, an arrow protruding from her chest. She was more than a comrade, she was a friend, a confidant, someone who had shared his dreams and fears. The battlefield seemed to freeze around him, the sounds of clashing steel and cries of pain fading into a distant echo. Rage consumed him, fueling his every strike. His vision blurred with tears and fury, he fought with a ferocity that seemed almost inhuman. Each enemy that fell before him was a testament to his grief, a silent scream of anguish that reverberated through his soul. He became a whirlwind of steel, cutting down any enemy who dared to stand in his path. His movements were a blur, a deadly dance of precision and power. The enemies seemed endless, but so was his resolve. He fought not just for survival, but for the memory of those he had lost. But even in his grief, he never lost sight of his duty. The mission was paramount, and he knew that his actions could mean the difference between victory and defeat. His determination was a beacon of hope for his comrades, a reminder that even in the darkest times there is always a reason to fight. He rallied his men, leading them in a desperate counterattack. His voice, strong and unwavering, cut through the chaos. "For Anya!" he cried, and the soldiers, inspired by his courage, surged forward with renewed vigor. They fought as one, a united force against the tide of darkness. They pushed back the enemy, inch by bloody inch. Every step forward was a hard-won victory, every fallen foe a testament to their resolve. The ground was stained with the blood of both friend and foe, a grim reminder of the cost of their struggle. But the victory, it felt hollow. The cheers of triumph were muted by the memories of those who had fallen. The battlefield, once a place of chaos and death, now stood silent, a somber testament to the price of their hard-fought victory. For the cost of war, it had just become all too real. Liam stood amidst the devastation, his heart heavy with the weight of his losses. The faces of the fallen haunted him, a constant reminder of the sacrifices made. He knew that the scars of this battle would stay with him forever, a permanent mark on his soul. But he also knew that he had to carry on, for the sake of those who could no longer fight. This was the burden of a hero, a burden he would bear with honor and resolve. The price of freedom. Word of Anya's death, it spread like wildfire. Reaching the ears of Queen Lyra, it shattered her heart. She had lost a loyal soldier, a daughter in all but blood. The weight of the crown, it had never felt heavier. How many more lives, she wondered, would be sacrificed on the altar of war? Her resolve, it hardened. She would see this through, for Anya, for her people, for the future of her kingdom. A glimmer of hope. Weeks turned into months. The war, it raged on, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. But in the heart of the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged. A young enemy soldier, wounded and lost, stumbled into the queen's camp. He carried a message, a plea for peace. King Alaric, he was not invincible. His grip on power, it was slipping. His own people, they were growing weary of war. Turning the tide. Queen Lyra, she saw an opportunity, a chance to end the bloodshed, to forge a new path. She responded to the message offering a truce, a chance for negotiation. To her surprise, King Alaric agreed. He too had seen the devastation, the futility of this war. The meeting was tense, fraught with suspicion, but in the end, reason prevailed. Scars of battle. A peace treaty was signed. The fighting, it finally ceased. But the scars of war, they ran deep. Both nations, they had paid a terrible price. Their cities lay in ruins, their fields stained with the blood of their children, and the families, torn apart by grief, they would never be the same. A new dawn, the rebuilding began slowly, painfully. From the ashes of war, a new era emerged. An era of cooperation, of understanding. The two nations, once locked in mortal combat, now worked together. They rebuilt their cities, their lives, and they vowed to never forget the lessons learned. Lest we forget. The war, it was a stark reminder. A reminder of the fragility of peace, the destructive power of hate. But it also revealed the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for compassion, forgiveness. The war, it was over. But the memories, they would live on. A testament to the cost of conflict, the enduring power of peace, lest we forget.